G'day students, new speaking questions for September 2023 for the IELTS speaking test part 1. I'm under a lot of time pressure at the moment, so I'm going to deal with the new questions in a different way than in the past. What I'm going to do today is introduce to you the questions that I've already heard about for the new season. It's September the 5th today, so actually I don't have all of the questions, but I think I've got most of them. And the other thing that I want to tell you is that I'm going to update the new questions onto my website. There's a link below in the description to the video, so make sure that you go there. You can watch this video, but you might also want to see updates on my website. If time permits, I might make another video, but I think the chances are not great. So let me go. What I'll do in this video, I'll go through and share with you the new questions. I'll also put them in the description below if you just want to see them, but I'll read out what the questions are because I know a lot of you like this. Then at the end of the video, I might just go through some of the topics and give you some quick ideas about preparing for the test. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's see what the questions are. First up, in alphabetical order, we've got the topic of films. What films do you like? How often did you watch films when you were a child? Did you ever go to the cinema as a child? Is going to the cinema a good way to spend time with friends? Fish and fishing. Do you like eating fish? Have you seen any movies with lots of fish? Have you ever been fishing? Is fishing popular in your country? Geography. Did you study geography at school? Do you think geography is a useful subject? Are you interested in visiting any countries because of their geography? Do many people study geography in your country? Gifts. Do you like giving gifts to people? What kind of gifts do you usually give to your friends or family? Do you prefer to buy gifts online or in a store? How do you feel when you receive a gift from someone? Helping others. Do you usually help people around you? How do you help people around you? Did your parents teach you to help others? Do people in your country like to help strangers? Music. How often do you listen to music? What is your favorite type of music? Did you listen to music when you were a child? Would you like to learn to play an instrument? Noise. What type of noises do you often hear? Are there any sounds you like? What kind of noise do you dislike most? Is your area becoming noisier? Robots. Are you interested in robots? Have you ever seen any TV shows or movies about robots? Would you ride in a car driven by a robot? Do you think you will buy a robot in the future? Running. How often do you run? Where do you usually go running? Did you like running when you were a child? Do you think running is a good way to stay healthy? Tea and coffee. Do you prefer to drink tea or coffee? When was the last time you drank tea or coffee? Do you serve visitors tea or coffee? No to them. Just do you serve visitors tea or coffee? Um, do most people in your country like to drink tea or coffee? Let me just make a comment about this. Some of these questions could actually be quite confusing when you're in a test, because the meaning gets changed depending on how I pause. So, like, let me try and explain what I mean. So I'm reading out, do you prefer to drink tea or coffee? So it's tea, pause, or coffee. So what I'm saying is, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer tea or do you prefer coffee? Which of the two do you like best, right? If I read it in a different way, the meaning would change. Actually, not with the word prefer. Let's take the last one. Do most people in your country like to drink tea or coffee? So it's which one do they like, right? But if I read it out without the pause after tea, do most people in your country like to drink tea or coffee? Then it could mean like, instead of it being which one do they prefer tea or do they prefer coffee, it could be like just including both. Do they like to drink tea or coffee, or is it something else, right? So I don't know if that's really making sense, but the pause in there could be quite critical. Anyway, the key thing that I want you to know is it's for all of those questions. Actually, not the third one. It's interesting. So question one, it's a choice. Do you prefer tea or coffee? Which one do you like best? And it might be neither. You could have neither as an answer, right? You could just say, well, I don't like either of them. That'd be possible. When was the last time you drank tea or coffee? Either one. So if you drink both, when was the last time you drank one of those two? And then the third one, do you serve visitors tea or coffee? It's like, which one are you more likely to serve? It's back to sort of like preference. Do most people in your country like to drink tea or coffee? Which one do they like more? Like I've kind of heard, and I guess it's true, that for Chinese more likely to drink tea, although it could depend on age, right? Because I think coffee's getting more popular, but certainly if we say elderly Chinese, I think it'd be tea. I think it'd be the same with Indians. And then I went to Vietnam. It's almost all coffee there from what I could see. So I think Vietnamese would prefer coffee, and maybe Chinese might prefer tea, and Indians, I'm guessing tea. I'm not really sure. Yeah, I think so. I think tea is more of a feature when I've eaten in Indian restaurants. Oftentimes there's tea. I mean, there could be coffee as well, but tea's like milk tea. It's more of a feature, right? And oftentimes it's which one does your country grow more of, right? So I think both China and India growing a lot more tea than coffee. Vietnam, I'm not really sure. I think Vietnam, it might be coffee. I know Vietnam produces a staggering amount of coffee. Okay, so that let's what the other thing I sort of wanted to do today is just go through and give you some ideas about some of the questions. Since we're still on the tea and coffee, what might you do when answering these questions? What would be great is if you, like, let's say you're a coffee lover, if instead of just saying, oh, I like coffee, if you could say what kind of coffee, cappuccino, latte, americano, even if you don't really know what it is, if you used those words, I'd be oh so impressed. And what about tea? If you could tell me what type of tea in particular, maybe it's oolong tea or something like that, and you could talk about the reason why you enjoy these beverages, meaning drinks. That would be really good. What would be even more impressive, I suppose, is if you're a coffee drinker, say, or a tea, if you could like really get into the details, I like Guatemalan coffee because of the chocolatey taste that it has. You could talk about the aroma, the smell too, right? I'm more of a coffee person than a tea person, so I'm thinking more about coffee. Um, let's go through some of the other questions. I'm just going to like quick stuff off the top of my head. This is totally unplanned and I haven't really thought about it. Um, so let's just go back to the beginning. If I'm preparing for films, you definitely want to be. Let me just pause for a minute. Okay, so let me give you a few ideas just off the top of my head for some of the topics, new questions that we've got. So let's start with films. What films do you like? You definitely want to be paraphrasing key question words, and this like question comes up a lot. I like to paraphrase that to keen on, fond of, big fan of. So I think that's really useful. I do have a video on common question types, and I'll put a link below in the description, but I'll just quickly, when you were a child, that's another common one, and in your country, that's another common type of question. So you definitely want to prepare for question types for part one and not just topics. But sticking with the topic, films, we could have words like genre, which means the type of film. So common genres are things like drama, comedy, romantic comedy, detective movies, sci-fi. So that's something that you could include in your answer. I'm a big fan of comedy, romantic comedy genre. That would be a great word to use in your test. Suggests band 8 if I'm the examiner. Doesn't mean I'm going to give you band 8. Like, oh, you said genre, you got band 8. It's not so easy, right? But that would be a great word. You've got words like director, the person who directs the movie. You've got protagonist, the main sort of character in the movie, usually the biggest star, the biggest name, right? You've got the plot of the movie, which is what happens. So those are a few things you could talk about. Well, also cinema, we could paraphrase that to movie theatre, and films, we've got movies. So we always look for opportunities to paraphrase as well. Hey, by the way, if you use Word, a good way to find paraphrase, right click on a word and synonyms. Ooh, flicks. Yeah, haven't. It's like good slang. It's good idiomatic language. I don't think people use it anymore though. So what happens with students sometimes is they get idiomatic expressions, but they're kind of stale old ones, and useful for getting. Maybe you can get to band 7, but when you get up to higher levels of vocabulary, naturalness starts to come in, and just people don't use the word flick anymore. And there's just something like chick flick. Chick flick would be really good. That means like a movie that women like. And then we get another problem like chick flick. Maybe this is not politically correct now. It's not great to be calling women chicks, right? So there's another problem for you as a language learner. Isn't it wonderful that you may be learning things that are either stale and outdated, or words that in the past were acceptable but nowadays maybe not so much, and it's going to depend then on your examiner, and then it's a little risky, right? How do you know what the examiner's going to think? Sorry, that's probably confusing you some more. Next topic, the best thing to do, fish and fishing. So again, we've got the kind of word like, so we should be paraphrasing keen on, big fan of, really into is another one. And then you might, some names of fish would be good. Like if you like to eat fish and chips, and it's always fish and chips, right? It's never chips and fish. It's fish and chips. Learn the name of a fish that people eat. Even you don't eat a cod or barramundi or something. Learn the name of a fish, so that you could use that in your answer. You could say, I'm particularly keen on Atlantic cod, or something like that. So that would be a little bit of a boost. Then we've got another one about movies, so that's interesting. Have you ever been fishing? So you got like fishing. If you do like fishing as a hobby, you could talk about that. And sometimes people have quite high level vocabulary in their head, but it doesn't come out. So just think you've got the rod, the kind of here's a pen that's just as good. The fishing rod, right, and the reel and the bait. You put the bait on the hook to catch the fish, right? Or if you're fly fishing, then you have a lure. It's not even bait, it's a fake insect, and you cast and I don't know, move the rod around, and the lure will attract the fish, and then you can catch the fish. So that's about all for that one. Oh, if you don't like fish, you can use the great idiomatic expression. Well, you can just use negative form of, like, big fan of, I'm not a big fan of, but can't stand, or can't stand if you want American. If you can't stand something, that means you do not like it. If you can't stand it, then you're more British. I can't stand this video. I can't stand this topic of fish because I hate fish. It's true. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. Geography. So geo means land, and aphy, what does aphy mean? Photography. Aphy must mean something. Anyway, geo, land, and then aphy, is it the study of? No. Oh, I can't remember. If anyone knows, just stick it in the comments. I can't always be making videos and thinking of. I can't do two things at once. It's weird. Geography, you could talk about maps and things like that, and compass directions possibly. There's 5 questions here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, this is a really long one, that's why. Sometimes you get these really long ones. I like to move them down. Look less disruptive. Okay, I'd probably think about geographical features, right? If you want to talk about geography, which is something like the study of land or whatever, geographical features would be good, and higher level ones. So hill. Oh, great, you know the word hill. You're not a band 3. But if you had something like Alps, like the Swiss Alps, high mountains, that would be better. And so I had a look on ChatGPT and asked for some vocabulary, and I didn't really find a lot. So no wonder I'm having trouble. If ChatGPT can't do it, what chance do I as a human have, right? But I mean, there's a couple of nice words in here. I quite like this topography. So that's sort of what the area looks like. So we could say it has a mountainous topography or something like that, right? That would be good. But it hasn't really given me a lot of other ideas. I would just say pick something like your hometown, do a Google search on the geography of your hometown or your country, and you might just find some useful words in there for describing your particular place. And then I always like to recycle vocabulary. Then if you get asked about your hometown or the city that you're living in, bang, out comes your high level geography vocabulary for that topic as well. Or it could be like a part 2 question about a place you'd like to visit, and let's just say it's the Swiss Alps, and then you could describe the topography there. That would be fantastic. So gifts, well, we can paraphrase gifts. We've got presents. Anything else? Let's have a look. Let's right click it. The other things that it's coming up with aren't really right, like donations. When it sort of is, you give a gift for free or something. Do you like giving gifts to people? Oh yes, I'm very keen on giving donations. I just love it. You might think about sizes and shapes like miniature, gigantic. You could have some idioms to do with money. It cost an arm and a leg. Or that dime a dozen, which just means really commonplace, not expensive. So idiomatic expressions are always great, right? And then if I were taking the test, I would just scan through the questions, and I might just think about some gifts that I gave people recently, and that would help to prepare for the topic. Helping others, give a, I'm trying to get my hand into the screen, give a helping hand, right? Give a helping hand to someone. Great idiomatic expression. And then that word donation again could be quite useful. And that's about it. Music, there could be lots of things for music. Again, we can have the word genre. What's your favorite genre of music? And even if you don't have one, just pretend for the purposes of the test. And then make sure you know a genre. It could be classical music. It could be EDM. I'm not sure what EDM even is. If your favorite one is EDM, that's like an acronym for some. Maybe it's something like, it's probably like electronic dance music. I'm not sure, but you could figure out what the acronym is, and you could say the acronym and then say it in full. And if I would examine, I might be, oh great, you know what EDM is, because I'm just guessing. And it depends. If you play an instrument, make sure you know how to say that instrument in English. And if you are a music buff, a fan of music, then you might be able to have a whole lot of vocabulary about things involved with music. Or maybe you don't like music. Maybe you're not a big fan of music. Maybe music is not your cup of tea. Noise, yeah, I don't really like a lot of noise. I'm a person who likes things pretty quiet. So, topic before about music. I like music, but I don't like going to places where they play it really loud. I actually had my hearing tested, and my hearing, I have some damage in some area, but where there's not damage, my hearing is like double that of a normal person. So if you imagine something that's loud for you is twice as loud for me. So something that you find slightly loud, for me it's deafening. Like, whoa, dude. So noise, if you're like me, you like a tranquil atmosphere, a peaceful sort of sound. And if you're the opposite, maybe you like a lot of hustle and bustle. Hustle and bustle is like movement and noise together. I remember when I was in Taipei, and I learnt this kind of word, now, and it kind of means hot and noisy, I guess. Is hot, I think, and now noisy. But it was used in a positive way, and I kind of thought, how is something hot and noisy positive? Because they'd use this word for something like a night market. The night market is very now, and that's a good thing. Hot and noisy. But anyway, in English we could say hustle and bustle, and that could be negative or it could be positive, right? And then you could think about like I used the word deafening before. That so some adjectives to describe loud noise as deafening, or a quiet noise. What would a quiet noise be? What would be an idiomatic expression? Quiet as a mouse. Quiet as a mouse. That would be good. You can always just type into Google too. Just remember before though the danger that I said. Be careful with idiomatic expressions. They might be stale. They could be sometimes offensive, right? Because language use changes over time, and something that in the past was fine to say might not be okay to say now. And language evolves, right? It changes in meaning. Nice used to mean close. So there's a quote from some famous general. I forget who it was. It might have been Napoleon or someone of that sort of stature. Said after a battle, it was a very nice battle, and he didn't mean, "Ooh, I enjoyed it so much. It was so much fun." What he means is it was a really close battle. It's kind of like, damn, we almost lost that. We were lucky to win. And then you sort of see that nice, meaning close, over time develops into something good and positive, because a nice battle is something good if you win it. If you don't win it, it's not so nice. And moving on, robots. Definitely seen this topic before. Almost I think all the topics so far I've seen back in history. So, if you want to get some vocabulary and ideas, maybe model answers, just Google. Is going to be on the internet somewhere, right? And so what the IELTS organisation seems to do is just recycle questions, right? They come out, I think, exactly like in the past, and I think it's part of saving money, right? So robots, I don't have a lot of ideas for this. If the robot looks like a person, we call that an android, so that might be quite good. And we've got some like associated words like robotics, and maybe you can bring in some like technology language like artificial intelligence, state of the art technology. Always look for opportunities, right? And think about words that you already know, because students often have a bad habit of just trying to stuff in new words into their head, and it doesn't always go well, right? The trouble with learning new words is, one, it takes a long time. And I know you think you can learn 100 words in an hour, but you can't. You can learn like into your long-term memory. Like for me, I've learned Chinese, I've learned Thai, I've learned French, I've learned Latin. How many languages? There's like 4 languages. I'm not saying I'm fluent in them all. Not very good at Latin anymore. That's a story how I ended up studying Latin. Short version of it is I got kicked out of art classes. I was no good at art. The teacher screwed up my painting and threw it out. Kicked me out of class, and I was sent to study Latin. Not sure how that's relevant to robots, but let's keep going. What was I talking about? It's about learning new words. The most effective thing to do to prepare for your test in terms of vocabulary is to kind of think of the language that you've already got for these topics, right? And that's the most effective way, because you're more likely to be able to actually use it in the test and use it correctly. Whereas if you try and stuff in a whole lot of new vocabulary, it just doesn't come out in the test, and it might come out wrong. And what I find with most people, they have enough vocabulary already to get to the score they need. What they don't have is the habit of actually using these words in their everyday conversation. So I always encourage people, learn idiomatic expressions, learn high-level adjectives for describing things. They're really useful. And then the common question words, right? Like, what do you like, keen on, fond of, big fan of, don't like, can't stand, not my cup of tea. When you get down to this one about the car, you could talk about self-driving car, AI-driven car. You could maybe talk about Tesla and Musk, if you must. Running, very good exercise for cardio, right? For cardiovascular fitness. Cardiovascular system, what is that? That's all the pipes from your heart, right? Your arteries, your veins. And when you go running, it's good for you, right? It unblocks these pipes, these veins and arteries. We can use the word aerobic exercise, and again that's exercise that involves the heart. The heart pumping is aerobic exercise, like jogging or cycling, swimming. So you could use language related to health and talk about the health benefits of running. You might talk about where you go running. Maybe it's in the park. Maybe because of the tranquil atmosphere. Or if you're too lazy to run, you could talk about having a sedentary lifestyle. That's a lifestyle where you're mostly sitting down, right? So oftentimes with vocabulary, it might not exactly be related to the topic of running. It might be sort of side issues like the health benefits or where you go running. This is another way to deal with topics and use high-level vocabulary. Tea and coffee. I'm a coffee drinker. I like it a lot. Although I do like this kombucha tea. It's very nice. It's a kind of brewed tea, something you make at home. It's supposed to be really healthy and it tastes good. So if you're into kombucha, you might talk about that. You might then kind of use that as a segue onto health. So you can bring in your health language. Or maybe you're a coffee drinker, and weren't we talking about coffee before? And visitors? Oh yeah, at the start. I've already done this topic. That's right. And I was telling you about you can talk about the different types of coffee or tea that you drink and blah blah blah. I've covered that already, so I won't go into it in too much detail. What I'll do, I'll put in the description some links to some of the videos that I've made that I think might help you. I will also make a video for part 2. Hopefully it's going to be better than this one. This one just kind of like a freestyle video. I don't know if you like it or not. A lot of my videos before I've heavily used AI. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer a highly scripted but AI video, or do you prefer like this? It's me, wow, throughout the video, and more of a freestyle. I'd be interested to know if you have time, you could leave something in the comments to tell me. That would be interesting. And the other thing you want to do is go to my website. I'm more likely to update things on my website than here, just because it's easier. I don't have to shoot a video, edit it, upload it onto YouTube. I can just go straight onto my website. So I'm more likely to do it there. Other things, I do have a ebook for speaking. It outlines strategies for part 1, 2 and 3 and gives you some vocabulary, link below. And I do have a mock speaking service. I'll be honest, I don't really have interest in time on doing those right now, but I do have 3 people who are ex-IELTS examiners who can give you a mock test. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link below. It's $20 US for that service, but I think it's really useful, right? Because you get a trained examiner to listen to you and give you feedback on your mistakes and tell you how you can increase your score. And these guys are really experienced. They've been doing online mock tests for years, literally years, and hundreds, thousands of mock tests. So they're really sensitive to how they can help students, what the students' common mistakes are and the best ways to overcome them. So it's not only a mock test, there's also written feedback, verbal feedback. It lasts just over half an hour. So $20 US might be good value compared to the cost of not passing a test, right? And when I say the cost, I don't just mean the money. Like, a lot of people take the test and they're absolutely devastated when they don't pass. So when I talk about the cost of not passing a test, it's the money, it's the time, it's also, it's also the emotional cost. It's kind of deflating right? If you need 7 and you get 6.5, is you like I can do with this chair. You sink lower, right? You sink lower when you don't pass the test. And sometimes I've had to almost like counsel people when they don't pass the test. It's horrible. If you've ever not passed a test, you know what I mean. It's happened to me. I've not passed tests in my life. It's devastating. You go home and you feel absolutely terrible for the rest of the day, and you wake up the next day and you still don't feel quite right. Well, that's me. Maybe you're different. Some people it just doesn't affect them at all, but I think for most people it's a quite emotional experience, right? Okay, so that's all I want to say for now. I may release an update if a lot more questions emerge, but to be honest, I think I got most of them. And then part 2, I have a bunch of questions already, and I will release a video very soon for part 2. So if you want to make sure you get notified, you've got to subscribe, I think, and maybe there's a bell icon or something. And then if you've got the time, leave me a thumbs up, a like, and also comments. If you've got questions, stick them in the comment section. And I am busy, but I will quite regularly go on and answer some of those comments. All right, have a great day there.